Every generation has its hallmarks, but there are some things that were once everyday life for many that now seem like relics to the younger crowd. Today, we're journeying back to explore those unmistakable items and experiences that were second nature to us, but will draw blank stares from the kids of today. From the whir of a VHS tape rewinding to the anticipation of getting film developed, join us as we uncover things from the past kids today will never understand. Collecting green stamps. In the 60s, there was this interesting hobby called collecting green stamps. It wasn't about postage stamps with pictures of famous people or places, but rather these special stamps you could get while shopping. The idea was pretty unique, especially considering how we're all into digital rewards these days. Here's how it worked. When people went shopping, certain stores would give them these green stamps as a bonus for making a purchase. These weren't just any stamps. They were like currency. You'd collect these stamps and then trade them in for all sorts of goodies. It was a bit like saving up points in today's digital rewards programs, but with tangible stamps, you could hold them in your hands. People would keep these stamps in booklets, carefully arranging and counting them until they had enough to exchange for household items, appliances, or even furniture. It was a quirky and tangible way to turn your shopping into a little adventure, all while getting something extra in return. Green stamps filled wallets in the 60s, transforming shopping into a tangible adventure.
Are mullets cool again? They just might be. Even though mullets might not be the first thing you think of when it comes to stylish hair, they have a surprisingly ancient history. Mullets were a popular choice for warriors in ancient times, like Native Americans, Romans, Vikings, and ancient Celts. It wasn't a fashion statement back then, it was a practical choice for war. Long hair at the back kept soldiers warm, while a short front prevented hair from getting in their faces during battles. In the 19th and 20th centuries, mullets got a bad reputation and were seen as a sign of low social class. But the rebellious spirit associated with mullets has endured. In the early 60s and 70s, they became a symbol of defiance. So, are mullets making a comeback? History says they've always had a knack for being unexpectedly cool.
Phone numbers with named exchanges. Back in the old days, when people like us were younger, phone numbers didn't start with numbers, but with names. The first two letters of the name were like the first two digits on the phone dial. And this started in the 1930s and lasted until the 60s. Before that, they used 3 letters and 4 numbers without area codes or prefixes. These names not only gave you a number, but also told you which part of the city someone lived in. If you've ever wondered why phones have letters on the buttons, it's because of these old alphanumeric phone numbers. People needed to know which letters matched which numbers. In the 60s, the phone company switched to an all-number system, ditching the charming prefixes. A group in San Francisco, the Anti-Digit Dialing League, playfully protested this change, saying it dehumanized the phone system. They wanted to keep the fun names instead of just numbers. As we reminisce about the bygone era of named exchanges on phone numbers, one can't help but question the privacy implications. Yet, moving forward to explore the world of telephone party lines unveils a new layer of communal communication.
Where 2 parties share the line, generally only the bell of the called customer rings.
Did you know that breakdancing, also called breaking, started in the South Bronx of New York City in the 1970s? Back then, people in this neighborhood were inspired by the music and dances of the time, like funk, soul, and disco. Breakdancing is closely linked to hip-hop culture and is one of the original 4 elements of hip-hop, alongside rapping, DJing, and graffiti art. It involves fancy footwork, acrobatic moves, and a lot of creativity. Quickly, it became famous in the United States and around the world. Over the years, breakdancing has changed and adapted, with different styles from various places, making it diverse and interesting. The big news is that in 2024, it was declared that breakdancing would be part of the Olympic Games in Paris.
Soda fountains as social hubs. In the 1960s, soda fountains were more than just places to grab a fizzy drink. They were bustling social hubs where friends gathered and stories were shared. These quaint spots, usually found in drugstores or diners, had a special charm. Picture a long counter with shiny stools, and behind it, a soda jerk crafting sodas with precision. The soda fountain offered a variety of flavored syrups, and you could customize your drink just the way you liked it: cherry, vanilla, or a mix of both. Beyond the refreshing beverages, these soda fountains became cherished meeting spots. Friends would catch up, couples would share a sundae, and the community would bond over shared experiences. However, as time rolled on, the popularity of soda fountains waned, making way for the rise of coffee shops and fast food chains, which now serve as modern gathering places. Despite the shift, the nostalgic aura of those 1960s soda fountains remains a sweet memory of a bygone era.
Cabbage Patch Kids were super popular dolls in the 1980s. They're cloth dolls with plastic heads made by Coleco Industries in 1982. Inspired by Xavier Roberts' Little People dolls, Roger L. Schlafer renamed them Cabbage Patch Kids when he got the rights in 1982. These dolls broke sales records for 3 years, becoming a top choice for kids in the 1980s and one of the longest-lasting doll brands in the U.S. Besides dolls, they sold kids' clothes, bedding, babywear, music albums, and board games. In the 80s, Cabbage Patch Kids made about $2 billion in sales. They started with artist Martha Nelson Thomas in the early 70s, but then a guy named Xavier Roberts took her idea and put his name on the dolls, and they became a huge hit. In 1983, the dolls were so popular that there were shortages causing chaos in toy stores.
Carbon paper for copies. In the olden days, before photocopiers became a thing, people used a clever invention called carbon paper to make copies of their writings or typed documents. It was like magic paper. Here's how it worked. You'd have your original document and place a sheet of carbon paper underneath it, usually sandwiched between another blank sheet. When you wrote or typed on the top sheet, the carbon paper transferred the ink or impressions to the blank sheet below, creating an instant copy. It was like making a secret twin for your paper. People used carbon papers in offices, at home, and pretty much anywhere they needed copies. Even though it wasn't as quick or as easy as using a photocopier, carbon paper got the job done when you needed a copy of something important. It was a simple but clever way to make sure important documents were safely duplicated.
Ever thought about how those cumbersome 8-track tapes became a sensation in the 1960s? William Powell Lear, during the early 1960s, brought about a music revolution with the creation of the Learjet cartridge, leading to the widespread adoption of 8-track tapes. Originally, they were created for cars as an alternative to AM and later FM radio. The 1970s saw the peak of 8-track tape popularity displayed prominently in record stores alongside vinyl records. However, smaller cassette tapes gained momentum for their compact size in cars and homes. By 1982, major labels stopped selling 8-track tapes to stores, but they continued through record clubs until 1988, making 1980s tapes valuable to collectors. Fleetwood Mac's 1988 release was the last from a major label. Despite major labels abandoning them, smaller companies still produce 8-track tapes today.
Writing letters as a primary communication. Writing letters was a common and important way for people to communicate. Unlike today, where we can instantly send messages with a tap on our phones, people back then would sit down with pen and paper to express their thoughts and feelings. This practice was prevalent, especially among the youth of that era. It was not just a means of conveying information, it was a heartfelt and personal way to connect with friends and family. To write a letter, one needed stationery, envelopes, and postage stamps. People would carefully choose their words, and the process of writing, addressing, and sending a letter required time and effort. Waiting for a reply added an element of anticipation to the communication. Letters allow individuals to share experiences, express emotions, and maintain relationships over long distances. In the 1960s, the art of letter writing played a significant role in fostering connections and preserving memories, making it a cherished and meaningful practice in communication.
Screaming Will's Roller Rink, all night Ramble 375. Here's a reminder about Wednesday from 9 until 3 a.m. Ladies free the first hour.
Are you curious about how roller skating, initially a basic wooden contraption in the 18th century, has evolved into a widespread global phenomenon? Join us on a historical journey through the evolution of roller skating, from its humble beginnings to the modern trends that have made it a beloved pastime at Skate World Center. In the 18th century, roller skates began as a basic means of transportation with wooden wheels, which were challenging to maneuver compared to today's advanced designs. The 20th century saw roller skating gain popularity as a recreational activity, with the introduction of ball-bearing wheels revolutionizing the experience. The 1970s and 1980s brought roller disco and roller derby, each with unique charm. In recent years, roller skating has experienced a resurgence with innovative designs, diverse skate options, and a growing community. As we enter the 21st century, roller skating has become a thriving culture, connecting enthusiasts worldwide through social media.
Pull-tab soda cans. In the early 1960s, soda cans had a different kind of top called pull tabs. These tabs were easy to open, but they caused a big littering problem. The whole tab would come off the can, and people just dropped it on the ground. This made a lot of mess everywhere. People would toss these pull tabs on the streets, in parks, and even on beaches. It became a big issue because these tabs didn't stay connected to the can like today's pop tops do. Eventually, people started to realize how bad this was for the environment, and they came up with a new design for soda cans. This new design kept the tabs attached to the cans, which helped cut down on littering. So now, when you open up a soda can, you can thank those who thought of a better way to keep our planet clean.
Never before have so many children and youth crowded into our classrooms.
Have you ever been intrigued by those captivating and unconventional lamps that appear to challenge the laws of gravity? This accent light stands out as the most striking one in America. It brings glamour, interest, and excitement to any place. It keeps changing, pleasing your eyes, and it's like a hypnotic and fascinating show. In 1963, British entrepreneur Edward Craven Walker birthed the iconic lava lamp, a groovy creation with a captivating flow of colored wax in a liquid-filled glass vessel. As the lamp's bulb heats the wax mixture, it rises, cools, and gracefully descends in a hypnotic dance reminiscent of lava flows, hence the name. Initially associated with hippie and cannabis cultures, these lamps have evolved over the years. The magic lies in a unique formula involving mineral oil, paraffin wax, and carbon tetrachloride, now replaced due to toxicity concerns. This concoction's density dance, driven by heat, creates the mesmerizing lava lamp effect.
Film strip projectors in schools. Back in the 1960s, schools used film strip projectors as a nifty tool for teaching. These projectors were a bit like early movie projectors, but simpler. The film strip itself was a long, narrow strip of images, and the projector would display these images on a screen for students to see. Each frame on the film strip contained a picture related to the lesson, and sometimes there were captions or text to explain things. The teacher would manually advance the film strip frame by frame, explaining the content as they went along. It was a slower process compared to today's digital presentations, but back then it was cutting-edge technology. These film strips covered a wide range of subjects, from history to science, and they were a common sight in classrooms. As the film strip projector clicks to a stop, unveiling the bygone era of classroom technology, our attention shifts. But what about the milkman's daily deliveries? What timeless traditions awaited in the quiet routines of suburban doorsteps?
Moving forward, there was also the evolution of convenience in our kitchens. It's fascinating to trace back to a time when doorstep deliveries were the norm. The iconic milkman, with his daily rounds delivering fresh milk, was once a common sight in neighborhoods across the country. However, as times changed, so did our habits and lifestyles. Now, if you ever wondered who a milkman was and why milk delivery stopped, we'll provide answers in our upcoming exploration. Home milk delivery is making a comeback in the United States, bringing back nostalgic memories for many. The tradition of milk delivery dates back to the late 1700s when families had their cows. As urbanization increased, people turned to local dairy farmers for milk. The first home milk deliveries occurred in Vermont in 1785, with milkmen bringing metal barrels door to door. Customers would order and the milkman would deliver the next day. Milk was placed in insulated boxes or milk boxes built into homes. However, the decline began in the 1930s and 1940s with widespread refrigeration and the rise of grocery stores. Refrigerators reduced the need for frequent milk deliveries, and grocery stores offered a one-stop shop. After World War II, suburbanization increased, making milk delivery more costly. Cars made it easier to access grocery stores independently. By the 1950s, plastic containers replaced glass bottles. Today, the resurgence of home milk delivery taps into a bygone era of friendly milkmen and clinking glass bottles, rekindling memories of a simpler time.
Playing records at different speeds. Back in the 1960s, playing records was a whole different ballgame. You see, record players had this cool feature where you could change the speed to match the kind of record you wanted to play. Records came in 3 speeds: 33, 45, and 78 revolutions per minute. Each speed was like a secret code, telling the record player how fast to spin the record. The 33 RPM was for regular albums, the 45 RPM was for singles with hit songs, and the 78 RPM was for those really old-school records. To make sure the music sounded just right, you had to pick the right speed. It was like a DJ's secret trick. So, if you wanted to groove to your favorite tunes, you'd spin that record at just the right speed, and voila! The music would fill the room in all its glory. As the record spun at just the right speed, filling the room with nostalgic tunes, we couldn't help but wonder about another relic of the 1960s, the soda fountains.
A poodle skirt is a wide, swingy skirt made of felt in a single color with a design attached to it, often featuring a styled poodle. Other designs like flamingos, flowers, or hot rod cars were later used instead of poodles. These skirts, typically knee-length, became a hit among teenage girls for school dances and everyday wear. In 1947, Julie Lynn Charlotte designed the first poodle skirt in the United States when she needed a quick Christmas skirt. Struggling with little money and sewing skills, she crafted a seamless felt skirt. The popularity grew, leading to Charlotte creating a dog-themed version. The homemade version involved cutting a felt circle for the waist and adding appliques reflecting personal interests. Poodle skirts gained fame with movie stars and in magazines, becoming the first teenage fashion trend. Charlotte sold the design within a week, eventually opening her factory. Today, poodle skirts are nostalgic symbols of the 1950s, often worn as retro items, with modern reproductions made from contemporary felt.
Back in the 1960s, offices used adding machines with paper rolls for calculations. These machines were like big, clunky calculators, but they didn't have any fancy sirens or the ability to save your work like computers do today. Instead, they had a paper roll where all the numbers and calculations would show up as you pressed the buttons. You'd have to keep track of your math on this long strip of paper, kind of like a never-ending receipt. If you made a mistake, there was no delete button. You had to start all over again. Kids today might find it hard to imagine doing math without a digital screen to help, but back then, these adding machines were the best tools available for number crunching in the office.
Good evening, folks, and a hearty welcome to our drive-in theater. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family.
Have you ever wondered about the origins of the classic drive-in movie experience? Before the era of multiplex theaters, drive-ins were a popular choice for families and couples alike. The first patented drive-in opened in 1933 by Richard Hollingshead in New Jersey, aimed to provide a comfortable movie-watching experience for those who struggled with cramped theater seats. Over the following decades, drive-ins gained immense popularity, especially during the 1950s and 60s, offering families a space to bond and couples an affordable date-night option. However, drive-ins began to lose their charm with the challenges of seasonal movie screenings, dependence on weather, and economic shifts like the 70s oil crisis. Exploitation films and the rise of home entertainment further contributed to their decline. While many drive-ins closed, some persevered and adapted to the changing times, continuing to offer a unique cinematic experience. Despite the challenges, a few drive-ins still thrive today, showcasing a mix of current and classic films and even offering double feature nights.
Pogo stick as a popular toy. The pogo stick was all the rage as a popular toy, captivating the imaginations of kids across the block in the 1960s. Unlike the high-tech toys of today, the pogo stick may seem simple, but it brought heaps of joy to children back then. The magic happened with a strong metal pole, a footrest, and a spring at the bottom. Kids would hop on, gripping the handles tightly, and then bounce up and down with glee. What made it exciting was the challenge of mastering the rhythm and balance required to keep bouncing without taking a tumble. It wasn't just a toy, it was a skill to be honed. Kids would spend hours outside, practicing their pogo stick moves and trying to outdo each other with higher jumps and fancier tricks. It was a cherished part of the childhood experience, reminding us that fun didn't always come with screens and buttons.
In the 1960s, we had this quirky thing called party lines for our telephones. It was like a communal chat room, but for your phone. Imagine sharing a line with your neighbors and, oops, you might catch a snippet of their juicy gossip while picking up your calls. It was like accidentally stumbling into the neighborhood's drama hub. Picture this. You're trying to have a secret chat with your BFF, and suddenly Mrs. Johnson from next door is chiming in about her cat's latest adventures. It was a blend of unintentional eavesdropping and unexpected camaraderie. These party lines were like an unplanned community connection, a prehistoric version of today's group chats.
2, 3, 6.
Kids these days, with their smartphones and private conversations, will never quite grasp the innocent chaos and charm of those shared telephone lines. It was a time when every call was an unpredictable adventure into the lives of those around you.
Get in on the fun with the Shoop Shoop Hula Hoop, the hoop with the sound. For more tricks, more fun, get the Hoop of Champions.
A hula hoop is a toy hoop that you spin around your waist, arms, or neck. You can also roll it on the ground like a wheel if you're careful. People, both kids and adults, have been playing with hula hoops since at least 500 BC. The idea for the modern hula hoop came from bamboo hoops in Australia. Some say the creators of the plastic hoop we know today saw Australian kids playing with bamboo hoops while driving by in a car. The plastic hula hoop became a big trend in 1958 thanks to the Wham-O toy company. Kids' hula hoops are about 70 centimeters wide, while adult ones are around 100 centimeters. People used to make hoops from materials like willow, rattan, grapevines, and stiff grass. But now most are made from plastic. In 1957, the founders of Wham-O learned that kids in Australia were using bamboo hoops in gym class. In just a year, they made a plastic hoop called the hula hoop. It became super popular, with 25 million sold in 2 months and $45 million in sales in the first year. Adults bought them for kids but often tried them out themselves. Hula hoops are easy to use but work better for people with thin waists, especially women. The fun trend of hula hoops started in the 1950s with lively marketing in parks, playgrounds, and college campuses. Imagine you're in school, learning your ABCs, but suddenly the teacher shouts, "Duck and cover!" No, it's not some quirky dance move, it's a drill prepping you for a potential nuclear attack. These were the duck and cover days, my friend. The Cold War had everyone on edge, and schools were like mini boot camps for nuclear survival. When that alarm rang, you'd dive under your desk, cover your head, and brace for impact. It was a mix of hide-and-seek and safety lessons, all bundled into one nerve-wracking experience.
Experts will estimate the probable path and speed of approaching fallout.
Looking back, it sounds kinda absurd, right? But it was the real deal back then, a quirky routine born out of Cold War paranoia. With their fire drills and lockdown practices, today's kids can't fathom the unique blend of fear and absurdity that came with duck and cover drills. It's a vintage slice of history that makes you appreciate the peace of the present.
Now it's really important to stay calm. Remember that help is coming.
TV shows signing off at night. Back in the 1960s, when kids today weren't even a twinkle in their parents' eyes, something special happened on TV that they might never understand. At the end of a long day of shows, television stations would sign off for the night. That meant no more programs until the next day. Can you imagine that? Instead of endless streaming and shows all day and night, TV stations would play the national anthem or show a test pattern to let everyone know it was time to say goodnight. It was like a cozy little ritual to wind down the day. But nowadays, with 24/7 programming and endless streaming options, the idea of TV channels signing off at night seems like something from a whole different world.
Mixtapes, those nostalgic compilations of music on cassette tapes, hold a special place in the hearts of those who remember the era of cassettes. In the 1980s, people exchanged mixtapes to convey messages or set a mood. These tapes, made by compiling songs from various sources, were a blend of creativity and personal expression. Initially a popular trend among DJs, mixtapes became a way for artists to showcase their skills and for DJs to create demos for potential clients. They were also a backup plan for parties in case of equipment failure. However, the practice of creating mixtapes led to piracy issues in the 70s and 80s, prompting changes in the music industry.
Public service announcements during cartoons. In the 1960s in America, there were special messages called public service announcements shown during cartoons on TV. These were like short reminders with important messages for kids. One famous example was about preventing forest fires. It featured a character named Smokey Bear who said, "Only you can prevent forest fires." The goal was to teach children about taking care of the environment and being responsible. These messages were not just about selling things, but aimed to make kids think about being good citizens. The cartoons acted as a way to share important values and lessons with young viewers, encouraging them to be mindful of their actions and make positive choices.
Jukeboxes have a fascinating history that can be traced back to Thomas Edison, the inventor of cameras and light bulbs. A jukebox is a machine that plays music, often found in pubs and bars. You can choose a song by pressing buttons with letters and numbers on them. Some jukeboxes use CDs instead of records. In 1940, the term jukebox became popular in the U.S. During the 1940s and 1950s, jukeboxes were incredibly popular, with 3/4 of all records in America being played on them. During World War II, jukebox production stopped to support the war effort, but it resumed afterward. Jukeboxes were the heart of pubs and bars, providing people with a variety of music. Before jukeboxes, live bands were the only way to hear your favorite tunes. Jukeboxes revolutionized music, giving artists a new way to sell their music. Imagine a time when pocket-sized magic boxes allowed you to carry your favorite tunes and the latest news in your hand. We're talking about transistor radios. These nifty gadgets, smaller than a paperback book, revolutionized how we experienced music and stayed updated on the move. Back then, these portable wonders were your go-to companions for musical escapades and breaking news bulletins. It's like having a personal concert or a mini newsroom in your pocket. These radios weren't just about entertainment. They were a ticket to freedom, letting you untether from the confines of your home and groove to the beats wherever your adventures took you. Think of them as your trusty sidekick, your own portable DJ, allowing you to curate the soundtrack of your life while out and about. So next time you enjoy your favorite podcast on your sleek device, tip your hat to the humble beginnings of portable audio, the transistor radio.
Manual typewriter ribbons. Back in the 1960s in America, people used manual typewriters, and they had these things called typewriter ribbons. These ribbons were like ink for the typewriter. They helped put letters on the paper. But the tricky part was that these ribbons didn't last forever. You had to change them when they ran out. Imagine it like putting a new cartridge in your printer today. Now, changing these ribbons wasn't as simple as pressing a button. It could be messy. You had to be careful not to get ink on your fingers or clothes. It's so different from today's world, where we type on our clean computer keyboards. Back then, dealing with ribbons was just a part of using a typewriter. It's funny to think about how something as simple as changing ink ribbons was once a big deal before everything went digital.
You might know about sock hop, but if you want to go to one or throw your sock hop party, there are a few things you should know. A sock hop, also known as a record hop or just a hop, was a casual dance event for teenagers in North America in the mid-20th century. These events featured popular music and were often sponsored. They started in 1944 during World War II as a way for the American Junior Red Cross to raise funds. By 1948, they became a trend among American teenagers and were commonly held at high schools in places like gymnasiums or cafeterias. The name sock hop originated because participants had to take off their hard-soled shoes to protect the gymnasium floor. Music at these events was typically played from vinyl records, sometimes by a disc jockey or live bands. In later years, sock hop became closely associated with the 1950s and early rock and roll, with the term eventually being used more broadly for any informal dance for teenagers. The tradition of removing shoes faded as sneakers and indoor-only footwear gained popularity. Let's rewind the clock to a time before touchscreens and speed dial. Enter the legendary rotary phones. Back in the day, making a call wasn't just about tapping on a screen, it was a workout for your fingers. Imagine a phone with a circular dial featuring numbers from 0 to 9. You had to stick your finger into the corresponding numbers slot to make a call, give it a satisfying spin, and then release. It was like a mini ritual for every phone call. Sure, it might sound a tad slow in today's instant gratification world, but there was an art to it. You needed patience and precision, especially if you were dialing a number with lots of nines or zeros. And let's not forget the suspense as the dial slowly returned to its starting position. For today's generation, used to tapping and swiping, the rotary phone experience might seem like ancient technology. But for those who mastered the art of the spin, it was a tactile and oddly satisfying journey through the world of communication.
Using maps and printed directions for navigation. In the days before everyone had Google Maps and other fancy digital maps, folks in the USA had to get creative to find their way around. Back in the 1960s and beyond, when technology was less high-tech, people relied on a bunch of methods to figure out where they were going. They'd unfold big paper maps, jot down directions from services like MapQuest, ask friendly locals for help, keep an eye out for physical landmarks, and pay attention to road signs. Some even had these special gadgets called GPS devices just for navigating. People were also pretty skilled at reading maps the old-fashioned way, using their knack for understanding and following maps to make sure they got where they wanted to go. Those were the days before everything was just a tap away on a screen.
She just takes Swanson TV turkey dinners from the freezing compartment of our refrigerator when I'm a little off schedule.
Oh. If we peeked into your fridge, what would we find? Maybe condiments, takeout containers, or something fuzzy and unrecognizable. Don't worry, many of us have fridges like that. Whether due to a busy life or not being great at cooking, sometimes making a homemade meal is tough. That's where frozen entrees come in handy. Frozen convenience foods aren't a new thing, and the credit for their invention is a bit debated. Swanson brothers are often credited thanks to a mix-up with Thanksgiving leftovers and a clever idea by salesman Jerry Thomas. Clarence Birdseye is another contender, having developed a system for freezing fresh food in 1923. Swanson's big 1954 advertising campaign made TV dinners a hit, selling over 25 million that year. Over time, frozen meals have evolved, offering diverse options like gourmet dishes, organic choices, and meals for specific dietary needs. Today, the freezer aisle is a far cry from the TV dinners of the 1950s, with a variety of delicious and specialized options for all tastes and preferences. In the pre-digital age, when the internet was just a distant dream, encyclopedias were the unsung heroes of research and homework. Imagine you have a school project and Google is just a twinkle in the future. So, where do you turn? The magnificent set of encyclopedias on your bookshelf. These weren't just ordinary books, but treasure troves of knowledge arranged alphabetically like a literary roadmap. Need info on dinosaurs? Flip to the D volume. Are you curious about ancient civilizations? A had you covered. Each entry was a carefully curated snippet of wisdom, and the glossy pages held the allure of discovery. Research meant flipping through these weighty tomes armed with highlighters and sticky notes. The encyclopedia was your trusty guide, and if you were feeling fancy, maybe you'd even use the magnifying glass attached to the bookshelf for a closer look. Today's kids might marvel at the idea of seeking information without the internet. Still, for those who navigated the world of encyclopedias, it was a tactile, organized adventure into the realms of knowledge.
Telephone party lines. Party lines were like a group chat for phones back in the day. Instead of each house having its own phone line, several houses shared one line. Each house had its special ring, so they knew when someone was calling for them. But here's the catch. Everyone on the party line could listen in on each other's chats. Imagine having a phone call and your neighbor listening in. It was like that. This made people worried about their privacy. These party lines were mainly found in countryside areas and small towns before everyone got their phone lines. They were popular around the middle of the 20th century, but as technology got better, individual phone lines became more common. So party lines faded away as people preferred having their private chats without the whole neighborhood tuning in.
Have you ever wondered about the simple circle with 3 lines inside that has become a global symbol of peace? In 1958, British graphic designer Gerald Holtham created what we now know as the peace sign. Initially designed for anti-nuclear activists, it evolved into a representation of world peace and transcended its origins. Holtham drew inspiration from naval semaphore flags combining codes for N and D to signify nuclear disarmament. Yet the design also held a personal, darker meaning for him, a symbol of deep despair. Adopted by the British campaign for nuclear disarmament, it quickly spread to the United States and beyond. From its debut on banners in London to its appearance on Vietnam protest posters and T-shirts in the 1960s, the peace sign has left an indelible mark on popular culture. Back in the day when you pulled into a filling station, it wasn't just about pumping gas, it was a full-service experience. You roll up and a friendly attendant springs into action. They'd pump your gas, check your oil levels, and even give your windshield a sparkling clean. But hold on tight, because in 1964, a game-changer named Herb Timms stepped onto the scene. He cooked up a genius system that let attendants inside the store remotely activate the pumps outside. This invention turned the gas station game upside down, merging the convenience and gas industries into a dynamic duo. Now businesses could sell gasoline without the hefty cost of labor. The era of self-serve gas stations was born. No more personal attendants, but the trade-off was quick DIY fueling. So the next time you zip into a self-serve station, tip your hat to Herb Timms, the unsung hero who transformed the way we fuel up, blending convenience with a dash of technological wizardry.
Often Nanny will grow old, have patience for this dude. Hallelujah.
Using encyclopedias for research. In the groovy 1960s, kids had a different way of getting info compared to today's tech-savvy youngsters. Back then, when they wanted to learn about things, they didn't have fancy online searches. Nope. They used these big books called encyclopedias. Picture thick sets of printed books, each packed with facts and info on all sorts of stuff. Need to know about the moon landing or the Beatles? Flip through the pages. Unlike the quick clicks of today, using encyclopedias took time and patience. Kids would search for what they needed, scanning through pages until they found the right article. It was a hands-on adventure in learning, not just a speedy click away. As kids in the 1960s flipped through encyclopedias for info, they relied on patience.
Step back to the enchanting era of penny candy, where local stores were treasure troves of sweet delights for every child. In those days, colorful confections adorned the shelves, each priced at a mere penny. These weren't just treats. They were tiny bundles of joy within the reach of every eager youngster. Envision the excitement as children meticulously counted their pennies, eyes gleaming with the prospect of selecting their favorite sweets. It wasn't merely about candy. It was a cherished ritual, a passage into the realm of sugary indulgence. The delightful rustle of paper bags filled with goodies echoed the joy resonating through those unassuming stores. For today's generation, with their intricate confections and elaborate packaging, the simplicity of penny candy may seem like a distant fairy tale. Yet for those who reveled in its sweetness, those were the enchanting moments that defined childhood, a world where a penny could procure a pocketful of happiness. Do you ever notice how history has a way of repeating itself, even in the world of fashion? It's like a déjà vu of styles from our parents' golden years, and one trend making a strong comeback is flare pants. These pants, also known as bell-bottoms, have a fascinating origin story. In the early 19th century, sailors in the U.S. Navy sported flared pants because they lacked a set uniform. The British Royal Navy later adopted this style due to its practicality for sailors working on boats. Fast forward to the 60s and 70s when the hippie movement embraced bell-bottoms, often found as surplus Navy gear in thrift stores. The disco era brought its own twists with variations like loon pants and elephant bells. Nowadays, flare pants have taken on various forms, from leggings to trousers. They effortlessly pair with platform sneakers, making a stylish comeback.
The milkman's daily delivery. One common sight in neighborhoods across the country was the milkman making daily deliveries. This service involved bringing fresh milk right to people's doorsteps in sturdy glass bottles. The milkman's routine was like clockwork, ensuring families woke up to find their milk waiting for them. The bottles were often left in a designated spot, like a milk box, to keep them chilled until residents retrieved them. This daily tradition provided households with a convenient and reliable source of fresh dairy, eliminating the need for regular trips to the store. Families could count on the milkman for their daily supply of milk, and the glass bottles were not only eco-friendly, but also reusable. While this charming service has mostly disappeared in the modern era, memories of the milkman's daily deliveries remain a nostalgic reminder of a simpler time when a wholesome staple was delivered right to your doorstep.
In the golden age of television, the majority of households boasted black and white televisions, marking a simpler era in entertainment history. In the mid-20th century, color TV was a luxury not everyone could afford. The transition to color broadcasts began in the 1960s, but before that, families gathered around grayscale screens for their favorite shows. These TVs featured cathode ray tubes that emitted monochromatic images, and the technology limited the visual spectrum to shades of black, white, and gray. Despite the lack of color, the excitement of witnessing iconic moments like the moon landing or tuning in for the latest sitcom was just as palpable. Families often gathered in the living room, adjusting antennas and fine-tuning rabbit ear antennas to capture the best reception. The black and white television era may seem quaint by today's standards, but it laid the foundation for the vibrant, high-definition viewing experiences we enjoy today. Pet rock became a huge trend in the United States in 1975. Gary Dahl, an advertising man from California, came up with the idea during a dinner with friends. His concept was to have a pet that needed no care or feeding. Dahl wrote a pet rock training manual and decided to sell actual pet rocks. He bought inexpensive stones, packaged them in gift boxes with the manual, and sold them for $2 each. The rocks were a hit, and Dahl received numerous orders. By Christmas, he had sold over 1 million rocks, making him a millionaire. However, the craze quickly faded, and imitators flooded the market. Dahl, having made enough money, gave away unsold rocks to charity. He later focused on a new career, giving motivational speeches and writing books on making money quickly. Pet rock returned in 2012 but hasn't sold as much as it did in the 70s. Back then, a basic rock became one of the best-selling funny gifts ever. The 70s were pretty cool. The Beatles' iconic appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show in 1964 marked a turning point in music history, captivating the nation. Picture this. Sunday evening, February 9th. Families gathered around their black and white television sets in anticipation. As the Beatles stepped onto the stage, the ecstatic screams of fans echoed through living rooms across America. It wasn't just a performance, it was a cultural phenomenon. The Fab Four's mop-top haircuts and infectious energy instantly won the hearts of millions. Surprisingly, the show almost didn't happen. Ed Sullivan initially hesitated to feature the British sensation, but succumbed to the undeniable buzz surrounding the band. The broadcast drew a record-breaking 73 million viewers, forever altering the landscape of popular music. This moment didn't just launch the Beatles into superstardom, it ignited the British invasion, influencing a generation and reshaping the global music scene. The Ed Sullivan Show became a symbol of the band's unprecedented success and the birthplace of an enduring musical legacy.
Cigarette advertising on TV and radio. For over 2 decades, cigarette commercials were a common sight on American TV, until their prohibition in the 1970s. During this time, tobacco companies invested significant amounts of money in creating and broadcasting sophisticated ads, aiming to convince viewers that smoking was enjoyable, classy, and harmless. As awareness about the severe health risk of smoking grew, tobacco companies responded with misleading advertisements and confusing claims. Facing a decline in cigarette sales, advertisers fiercely competed to promote new filter brands. Despite this, TV commercials continued to avoid addressing health issues, leaving consumers uninformed about the true dangers of smoking. By the late 1960s, the established link between cigarettes and diseases prompted Congress to take the extraordinary step of banning cigarette commercials from the airwaves, effective in early 1971. In the present day, smoking is prohibited in most places, leading to a decline in smoking-related illnesses such as heart disease and lung cancer. As cigarette commercials vanished from TV in the 1970s, leaving a void in advertising, what messages filled the gap, particularly during children's programming?
I'm worried. I've heard reports that thousands of persons will be killed or injured on your highways this Christmas.
Number 7. Watching VHS tapes. In the 80s, kids had a movie night ritual that might sound strange today. Instead of clicking buttons on a screen, they ventured to video rental stores like Blockbuster, where shelves were stacked with colorful VHS tapes. These tapes held the magic of movies. Kids browsed the aisles, holding plastic cases with exciting pictures, searching for the perfect Friday night adventure. After choosing a VHS tape, they'd head to the checkout counter, feeling the anticipation of the cinematic journey about to unfold. Once home, they'd slide the tape into a VCR and press play. But here's the catch. No skipping scenes or instant access. If you missed a part, tough luck. Sometimes you even had to rewind the tape before returning it to the store. The joy of watching movies on VHS was like unlocking a treasure chest. The whirring sounds of the VCR, the fuzzy lines on the screen, it all added to the experience.
Sure, Sir Isaac Newton unraveled the mysteries of gravity, but could he have unraveled the mysteries of Rubik's Cube?
This Rubik's Cube is a small square, measuring 2 1/4 inches on each side. It has rows of squares that can be moved and come in different colors: red, white, yellow, green, blue, or orange. Each side of the cube has 9 squares, and the goal is to make all the squares on each side the same color. As for its history, this particular Rubik's Cube belonged to Harry S. Warren, who lived in Wilmington and worked at the Cape Fear Museum for many years. The Rubik's Cube became very popular. It was invented by a person named Rubik in Hungary in 1974 and has been puzzling people for over 35 years. It hit the Western market in 1980 and quickly became a sensation, with over 350 million cubes sold worldwide.
Sunday drives as family entertainment. During the 1960s, gas prices were low, making it affordable for many families to own cars that were mass-produced on assembly lines. This accessibility to automobiles led to a surge in family road trips across the USA. The country was actively expanding its road infrastructure, creating miles of new highways. This era saw a rise in the popularity of the Sunday drive, a leisurely outing where families explored the countryside or other picturesque areas. Families also embarked on longer journeys to state parks or the shore for their vacations. An additional favorite pastime was attending drive-in theaters, where families could enjoy a cost-effective evening watching movies from the comfort of their cars. The combination of affordable gas, widespread access to cars, and the growing road network made family road trips and outings an integral part of American culture in the 1960s.
Have you ever come across the golden age of arcade video games? Stick around as we are going to explore. It was a cool time in the late 1970s to early 1980s when arcade games were booming. Space Invaders in 1978 kicked off a frenzy of shoot-'em-up games like Galaxian and the space-themed Asteroids in 1979. Thanks to new tech, arcade games went from black and white to colorful adventures like Frogger and Centipede. Arcades became a big deal in pop culture, offering new and exciting games. Have you ever played Defender or Galaga? Or how about chasing mazes in Pac-Man? Driving and racing got a 3D twist with games like Turbo and Pole Position. And who could forget the start of platform games with Donkey Kong? Characters like Pac-Man and Mario became stars, even appearing in songs, cartoons, and movies like Tron in 1982. But in 1983, things took a nosedive. Too many copies of popular games, home video consoles, and worries about kids' influences led to a decline. The 1990s saw a comeback, though.
Using a hose to wash the driveway. Back in the 1960s, cleaning driveways with water hoses was a common practice that many people followed without giving it a second thought. Back then, it was routine to grab a hose, turn on the water, and spray away the dirt and grime from the driveway. This method seemed like a simple and effective way to maintain a clean outdoor space. This process usually involved using a strong stream of water to wash away debris, leaves, and stains. It was a straightforward approach that many homeowners adopted without considering the environmental impact. However, as times have changed, so has our understanding of water conservation. The casual use of hoses to wash driveways is now often discouraged due to concerns about wasting water. In the present day, there's a greater awareness of the need to conserve water resources and alternative methods, such as using brooms or electric pressure washers. They're encouraged to clean driveways more efficiently while minimizing water usage.
And you believe those cozy coverings for legs that look like long, thick socks without the feet? Well, let's dive into the next nostalgic memory. They're not just a fashion statement. They serve the practical purpose of keeping your lower legs toasty in chilly weather. Whether you're cycling, playing soccer, hiking, ice skating, or dancing, leg warmers are your go-to companions. Originally made from sheep wool, modern ones can be cotton, synthetic fibers, or even chenille. Ballet dancers use them to keep their leg muscles warm and prevent cramps, but there's no solid proof yet if they really prevent injuries. Back in the 1980s, leg warmers became a trendy fashion, especially for teenagers influenced by movies like Fame and Flashdance. Nowadays, they've made a comeback, not just for fashionistas, but also for practical parents keeping their little ones warm and making diaper changes a breeze. Let's talk about the fabulous world of drive-in theaters. Now, these weren't your regular movie nights, no! Picture a giant outdoor cinema, stars twinkling overhead, and the best part, you're not squished into a cramped seat, you're chilling in the comfort of your car.
The one you'll find uppermost in the minds of most high school students, especially toward the end of any week.
It was like a tailgate party meets blockbuster movie night. Families, friends, and even couples on a date would roll up, park their cars, and tune into the cinematic magic. Snuggling in blankets, popping popcorn, and maybe even sneaking in some homemade snacks. It was a whole experience. In today's era of streaming services and cushy home theaters, the notion of watching a movie under the open sky, surrounded by the hum of car engines and the scent of the night air, might seem like a vintage dream. But for those who cruised into drive-ins back in the day, it was the epitome of entertainment and a nostalgic chapter in the story of movie magic.
Hey, that supply of Ritz seems on the fritz.
No.
Let's take a trip to the era before computers ruled the writing world. The trusty typewriter, the unsung hero of document creation back in the day. Before the luxury of sleek laptops and high-speed printers, writers, reporters, and diligent office workers relied on these clunky, clickety-clack machines. The typewriter was our ticket to creating documents with a tangible, satisfying rhythm.
In our office, we centered the date at the top of a letter.
Each keystroke brought a satisfying thud and a crisp letter onto the paper. There was no backspace key to rescue us from typos. Instead, we engaged in a tango with correction ribbons and whiteout.
It's a bit of a jump to the next one on view.
It was a tactile dance of creativity and precision. Today, with sleek computers and silent printers, the typewriter's clunky charm is a relic of the past. But oh, the nostalgia for the days when writing was a tactile, audible experience. Kids today, with their digital marvels, might never fathom the simple joy of a typewriter's song. The late-night hours were a period when the airwaves took a break, and your television screen transformed into a canvas of mesmerizing TV test patterns. These captivating designs weren't just random shapes, they were the unsung heroes of the broadcasting downtime. When the regular programming went on a break in the wee hours, these test patterns stepped into the limelight, dancing across your screen like electronic artwork. They weren't just a kaleidoscope of colors and lines. They were the silent performers during the television's intermission. Think of them as the night shift entertainers for your TV set, ensuring the silence doesn't feel too silent. As you drifted into the realm of dreams, these test patterns held the fort, silently awaiting the return of the broadcasting day. They were the night owls of television, painting the canvas of your screen with their quiet charm until the first rays of morning light brought back the hustle and bustle of on-air action. Let's take a stroll down memory lane to the era of film cameras, where capturing memories wasn't as instant as a click and a swipe. Imagine this: a camera that uses actual rolls of film. No, not memory cards or cloud storage, but physical rolls of light-sensitive material that had to be delicately loaded into your camera. Each roll had a finite number of shots, so every click counted. Here's the kicker: you couldn't instantly preview your masterpiece. You had to finish the entire roll patiently, rewind it, and then send it off for development. It was like sending your artistic secrets to a photo wizard who would magically unveil your memories. The anticipation of waiting for those prints to come back was both agonizing and thrilling. Today, with digital cameras and smartphones, the idea of waiting for photos feels like a relic. But for those who once wielded film cameras, each shot was a thoughtful commitment, and the joy of finally holding developed prints was a special kind of magic. Travel back with us to a time when music wasn't just a click away, it was a tactile experience. Before the days of cassettes and CDs, the record player reigned supreme as the maestro of home entertainment. Picture this: a vinyl disc gently placed on a turntable, the needle making contact, and the room filling with the warm crackle of anticipation. Listening to music wasn't just hitting play, it was a ritual. You'd delicately handle the record, perhaps blowing away imaginary dust for good luck, and then carefully position the needle. That initial pop and hiss signaled the start of an auditory journey. Album covers were more than just art. They were gateways to musical worlds. Each record told a story, and flipping it to the other side was like turning a chapter. There was something magical about the analog dance of needle on vinyl, a connection to the music that went beyond the digital ease of today. For those who grew up with record players, it wasn't just about hearing music. It was about experiencing it physically and emotionally, in a way that made every note a cherished moment. Travel back to the groovy 1960s, when fashion wasn't just a statement but a wild, bold rebellion against the status quo. Go-go boots and miniskirts, the dynamic duo that shook up the streets and danced their way into the hearts of the era, weren't just pieces of clothing. They were symbols of a cultural revolution. Now, imagine being a fly on the wall of that swinging decade. Go-go boots, those knee-high wonders, weren't just footwear. They were a manifesto of confidence, a kick in the face of conventionality. Paired with miniskirts, these fashion powerhouses defied the norms, boldly shouting, "We won't be hemmed in." For the kids of today, it's like looking at relics from a distant planet. The energy, the audacity, the sheer exhilaration of those fashion choices. It's something words struggle to capture. Those go-go boots and miniskirts, they were the pulse of an era beating to the rhythm of change. Imagine cruising down the open road in a classic car, feeling the wind tousling your hair and the sun warming your face. How? By embracing the good old-fashioned charm of manual car windows. Picture this: you reach out, grab a trusty crank handle, and with a satisfying twist, the window obediently glides down. It's like a little mechanical dance between you and your car, a timeless ritual that connects you to a past era of simple driving. No fancy buttons or electronic gadgets here, just the pure hands-on joy of rolling down your window with your own two hands. It's a symphony of clicks and whirs, a hands-on experience that makes you feel like the captain of your vehicular destiny. Forget about power windows and embrace the rustic allure of the crank handle, where every turn is a small victory in the art of driving. So next time you hop into a car with manual windows, relish the analog magic and savor the simple pleasures of the road. The payphone has been an iconic part of urban landscapes since the mid-20th century. Imagine strolling down the street and stumbling upon a booth with a ringing phone just waiting for your spare change. These public telephones, scattered on street corners like communication outposts, were a lifeline before the era of smartphones. To make a call, you'd drop coins into the slot and dial the number of your friend, family, or perhaps a pizza joint for a quick delivery. The distinctive metallic clang of coins hitting the coin box became a familiar sound on bustling streets. Interestingly, payphones were not only for emergency calls or quick catch-ups, they were often a vital link for travelers trying to reach their destination. Maps, change, and the nearest payphone, essentials for navigating an unfamiliar city back in the day. While the payphone has largely faded into nostalgia with the rise of mobile phones, its presence on street corners served as a tangible connection point in the pre-digital age, adding a touch of analog charm to the urban experience.
Number 4. Waiting for favorite TV shows. Back in the 80s, waiting for a favorite TV show was a weekly ritual. There is no on-demand streaming, just a fixed time each week when your beloved show airs. Family and friends gathered around the television, eagerly anticipating the latest episodes. It was kind of like a shared adventure. There were no spoilers because everyone was on the same page, watching together. No binge watching. Patience was the name of the game. Missing an episode meant relying on reruns or hoping a friend had it recorded on a VHS tape. The excitement peaked during season finales or cliffhangers. Discussions buzzed at school or work the next day, creating a sense of community. Water cooler chats were filled with speculation and theories about what would happen next. As the rhythmic sound of cassette wheels echoed through the streets, the 1980s gave rise to a distinctive blend of entertainment and individual expression through the use of a Walkman.
What a total sound sensation. Get yourself wired for sound with the Telmac Walkabout Stereo cassette player. Just slip into the featherweight headphones, pop in your favorite cassette, and you'll not only hear the music, you'll feel it all over.
Number 8. Using a Walkman. Before tiny music boxes were in our pockets, kids rocked it out with a Walkman. It was like a magical musical buddy, a small cassette player that made tunes portable. People popped in their favorite cassette tapes, put on headphones, and strolled the streets in a personal concert. No Spotify, no Wi-Fi, just the rhythmic click-clack of cassette wheels. Kids had to flip tapes to hear both sides, making it a hands-on DJ adventure. Mixtapes were the stars, crafted with love and shared secrets. Walkman went everywhere, to school, on buses, and even while cruising on skateboards. It wasn't just a device, it was a fashion statement, strapped proudly to belts or peeking out of cool jean pockets. Today, with pocket-sized music libraries, the Walkman might seem like a museum piece. But for 80s kids, it was a groovy gateway to a world of personalized tunes, turning everyday moments into unforgettable soundtracks.